Hello, everyone. I am going to do a quick recap of the books that I read in February and March, because I never did one for February. So I'm just going to stick them together. So, February, I read a lot of books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books. So I'm not going to talk about all of them. I will say I read Midnight Sun. And that sent me on a downward spiral or an upward spiral, however you look at it, of rereading the Twilight Saga, which I really enjoyed. I was obsessed with Twilight, like what was it? Oh, more than 10 years ago. A while ago. When Midnight Sun originally came out, I had no interest in reading it. I'm like, I already read that story. It's Edward's version of Twilight. Basically, it's Twilight from his perspective. But recently I had a friend tell me I should give it a try, so I read it and I liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I found some parts of it really interesting, seeing things from Edward's perspective and from the Cullens' perspective. But I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the other Twilight books. But I'd say if you're a fan of Twilight, you'd probably like this book. The only other book I'm really going to talk about from February is going to be Hail Mary, because this book was like, it was a spiritual experience for me. Let me just say it's how do I put this? I freaking loved it. I just really, really loved this book. I loved the characters in the book. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan. Dark Matter was one of my favorite books from last year, but that's probably the only sci-fi book on my top 10 books from last year list. Dark Matter wasn't very science-y. It was more fiction-y than science-y. Hail Mary is a little bit more science-y, but even the parts that were heavy on the science, as you can tell, from the way I'm speaking, not my wheelhouse, but I am really interested in some types of science like quantum physics and whatnot. I'm interested in it. This wasn't that. This was more of like method and how to solve a problem in outer space. As it went through and explained these things, I was able to follow along still. That's what I'm trying to say. I was able to follow along through the science. And I completely was like engulfed in this book. I don't know what else to say. Read it. It's really, really good. Funny, and it's heartwarming, and it's about friendship, and it's about who we are at our core and what it takes to kind of sometimes bring out who we really are. And it's good. Read it. Even if you're not sciencey like me. The other book I'll talk about real quick, Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper. It took me a little while to get into it, to be honest with you. It's a nice, sweet book. So if you're in the mood for like a sweet read, a little bit sad, but nothing like too intense, it's a good one. Before We Were Innocent, that's another one that took me a while to get into, but once I started reading it, I didn't like the characters at first. I liked them by the end of the book enough, and it really brought up some emotions in me about, like, who are we when we're in our early 20s, like late teens, early 20s? We still really have no bleeping clue who we are, and we're supposed to be making these adult decisions. These females in this book make a decision that is life-changing. They have an experience that is life-changing, and they're put under a microscope, so because of it. All right, February. I read less books in February. I read 4. I gave them all 4 out of 5 stars. They're all fine books, just fine books. I'd say the 5-star Weekend I really liked. It's a book about a group of women. It actually kind of like is a counterpart to Before We Were Innocent. One woman who invites 4 of her best friends from different stages of life on a weekend vacation. And what they're each going through their own things in their personal life and bringing that on this vacation with them. And some of them have their own like interpersonal relationship stuff going on. So it's kind of just about friendship again, and being honest with your friends and being honest with yourself. And it's a fun beach read. Like, that's what it is, but also pokes fun of itself for being that. So another fun, like, light read to read. a light read to experience. Great Believers. This book was kind of heavy. It was really heavy. It's about the AIDS epidemic. So yeah, it's heavy. It's about the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s into the early 90s and how it impacted the gay community, the gay male community, especially in Chicago, which I liked this part of the story, it being based in Chicago, because I'm from outside of Chicago. It really paints a clear picture of 1980s Chicago. The other half of the book takes place in like 2015 Paris. So it's about how the AIDS epidemic impacts this group of gay friends, and one of them has a sister who kind of is like almost like the mother hen for the group, but younger than a lot of them in age. And so she's the one in 2015 looking for her daughter who got swept up in a cult. It's almost like two stories in one, but how the AIDS epidemic impacted people both like in this short time frame and later on in life. Enjoyed the main characters from the beginning. Some of the other characters I wish were fleshed out a little more, because there were some that I just didn't feel connected with as much, but specifically Fiona, who is the sister mother hen to the group, specifically her daughter. I wish there was like more there. Can I call it historical fiction if it took place the decade I was born? What I like about books that take place in the past, about real events in history, is you're able to experience something and have an inner knowledge of an event that happened that you would never have, or maybe be interested enough, at least me, to have learning about it in history class. So yeah, I would recommend this book, but it is heavy at times. It's heavy, but it also like doesn't carry that throughout the entire book. There's funny moments and light moments, and it wraps up in a sweet way. So anyways, those are the books I read. Not all of them, but those are a few of them. And go read Project Hail Mary. Bye bye.